Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have co-founder and CEO of Hudson Valley Swim. I have Jeff Gartner with us. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hey, Frank. Good to see you again.
Great.
I feel like we're old friends.
Yes. Yeah, it was great to meet you over at the Emerging Franchise Conference last year, and we got a chance to talk quite a bit. Talk about New York and talk about being in the kids business. So I'm looking forward to having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's going to be cool. So swim school, I've got to know the origin. So what made you start this? How did this whole Hudson Valley Swim come to be?
This actually started as an idea in my backyard. I live in New York. Obviously, it's a seasonal location. And so I would bring an instructor in for my kids and some of the neighborhood kids. And we would, they all took to the water very, very, very well. And the problem was, come the end of August, what do you do with them? So we looked around for an indoor program, and there was one about 15 miles away, had terrible ratings. And the instructor that came in was just awesome. So we just decided, why don't we try to find a pool and launch our own business? There's got to be some demand for it. So we did that back in 2003. We looked around, and it was hard finding a pool at first and maintaining that relationship. So we were at one location, we changed locations. We ended up settling on a location in Newburgh, New York. And that was at a Gold's Gym, which we're still at today. So that was about 18 years ago. And, we have a great relationship with them. And since then, we've expanded to other locations as well. But the original idea for the swim school was really to promote, swim lessons in the community. But we didn't have the mission that we do today initially. It's something that we grew as we became smarter about the industry and the need for swim lessons, and started finding out about some of the statistics around drownings, especially in children ages 4 and under. But it's not really just in those ages, but for, it is adults, and it is kids 12 and under and so forth. There's certain communities that are underserved. Some of the African-American communities, the percentage of proficient swimmers is really, really low. Special needs communities, that's also a big problem.
So tell me how the mission started and what did it evolve to then?
So, it started as a business. We saw opportunity, and we took it, and it started to grow, and we started seeing, demand build. But, probably about 10 years ago is really when my eyes started opening up. And that was a result of some of the horror stories that I hear from some of the families that came to us. There were families where a few people had died in backyard parties at the same party. We've even had adults that had come to us with, a 50-year fear of the water. Due to a drowning incident that they had encountered themselves, and they were just terrified of the water. And just remember that just because you don't die from drowning doesn't mean you're out of the water. I mean, there's 4,000 drownings every year in the United States, but there's another 8,000. Those are fatal drownings. There's another 8,000 near fatal drownings. And there are long-term effects, either physical or even emotional. But there are very, physical effects, brain damage, respiratory issues, and things like that. And then, of course, the phobias that people develop over time as a result of that.
You've been doing this quite a long time now. You said it's over 20 years now. Congratulations. And, I understand you have 8 corporate locations. You have 6 franchise locations. I want to ask you, because I know there are there are other swim schools out there, and there's even other swim school franchises out there. I understand your model's a little bit different. Would you share with us what makes Hudson Valley different?
Well, first, everybody's in business for the same reason. All the swim schools are in business for the same reason. And so every one of those brands should be commended for the mission that they're on, because it's similar. I'd say, three categories of swim schools. There's the ones that build out a facility.
Okay.
That's obviously very expensive, and time to market is long. Plus the operational costs, and hence the profitability. High operational costs, lower profitability. So they're the build out guys. There's the seasonal guys, the ones that go from pool to pool and teach lessons in your backyard. That's very seasonal. Obviously, some areas of the country, there's more swim season than others.
Right.
That's also, it's hard to get a lot of lessons in when you're traveling all over the county, and because of all the travel time and so forth. And plus, you're also more dependent on the weather. So our model is a pool rental model. There's a few franchises out there that also do something similar. Basically we look at obtaining underutilized pools in fitness facilities, community centers, schools, hotels, etc. And they're typically, these facilities are paying to heat it, paying to maintain the chemicals, often the lifeguards and so forth, and they're empty.
Sure.
So this provides, a good business opportunity to those facilities to bring in a rental income to offset a lot of those costs, or make money in a lot of cases. And it also helps them offer a service to their community and to their membership, to have this as an additional feature, along with sports training and aerobics and things like that. They also now have at their location, helps them differentiate from other facilities in that they also have swim lessons there. So that's really good. Now, our program itself is unique. It's a program we designed ourselves over 20 years. So it's not an off-the-shelf American Red Cross program. It's not a program you get from the U.S. Swim School Association. We look to those organizations. They do a great job. We took the best of all of them, USA Swimming as well, and then we combine that with our own experience. What works, what doesn't work. We add some fun into the curriculum so that kids want to come back. It's not a chore for them. And because it could be a very dry, very exhausting kind of a experience for a kid. But if you make it fun, they want to come back. They want to see their favorite instructor. They develop a bond. Our program, also, our instructors are very, very experienced. We're not hiring rookies. We're hiring very experienced instructors that know they've been teaching 5, 10, 15 years. They're career aquatics people, and we then train them on our program. One of the byproducts of that is all of our instructors can teach all the levels. So some swim schools will say, hey, you move from a beginner to an intermediate, you go from Miss Susie to Miss Michelle, and the kids develop a bond with their instructor. And very often they'll move from one swim school to the next, until they develop that bond, and then they want to stay there. But if they have to move when they move up a level, that's counterproductive for them. So we all our instructors teach all the levels. We also do competitive levels. We do special needs classes, etc. So that's also a differentiator for us. And then lastly, we focus on customer service. We're a premium brand. People are paying a lot of money for the swim lessons. You got to give them the service that goes with it. And that goes all the way from the instructors in the water, all the way to the phone calls that they're making and the emails that they're sending and so forth. We give them a good experience there as well. So we have a very well-rounded program.
That's great.
And we have territory available. We're an emerging, and so we have a ton of territory available. I would think a lot of the other franchise swim schools have a lot of the prime markets already spoken for.
Right. Well, you had been doing this for about 19 years before you launched your franchise, and I'm curious on how you started, why you decided franchising was right for you. What were some of the factors that that you contemplated. And I say this also because I think about our audience is sometimes people who are thinking of franchising their concept. So I want them to kind of get into the mind of Jeff to hear what are some of the things that you thought about, that you weighed and said, should I keep just, I've been successful for 19 years. Maybe I could just keep doing this corporate owned location. But what ultimately prompted you to franchise?
Well, for the first thing that I would suggest to anybody considering it is to make sure that they're running their own corporate store or stores, so that they have the experience and the know-how. I have seen some brands that came up with a concept and they want to franchise it immediately. Great. I don't subscribe to that methodology because I just think you have to have the experience. You have to have the operational experience so that you could tell somebody else how to operate. So in our case, we've operated for a number of years, and we started adding more corporate locations. And what I found was I could turn one up in a couple of months. And be fully operational. I had the whole marketing sauce figured out, and then I would turn the next one up, and it was easy. I won't say easy. It was easy enough to do, and I got to a point where I felt I could duplicate that over and over and help somebody else do that as well. The important thing is for us, you don't have to be the aquatics person. You hire those out. All right, and so I'm a business person. And, I've never taught swimming lessons. I was a lifeguard, when I was a teenager, and that's about it. My wife's not a aquatics person either, but we're business people, and she handles the customer service side. I handle the whole startup and back end operations, and that whole combination worked very well. And we felt that we were able to teach others how to do that. And not only that, my background is in business process automation. And so, I have an engineering background. I've been in industry for a long time. I've got patents on improving business processes and things like that. And what I started looking at was, how do I make it simple for Frank, who knows nothing about this business, to start up? And I looked at all the pain points that somebody would get, anywhere from finding the appropriate insurance to how do you do the marketing? How do I get my chart of accounts together? How do I do the bookkeeping, et cetera, et cetera? And I packaged it all up in a business in a box, so that basically, you come to us and we do all the training. We align you with all of our business partners, for insurance and so forth. You just basically fill out an intake form, give them your tax ID, and they'll produce a big insurance policy for you. So all these things are handled for you. You just really have to work hard and execute on some of the marketing initiatives that we set up.
And now, you obviously started in New York. That was your first company-owned location. How long was it before you opened the company locations in Florida and Connecticut?
Those were relatively recent. So, in fact, my corporate location in Connecticut is opening in March.
Okay.
All right. One of the things that I did as part of developing out the franchise was to develop business relationships with some of the national fitness brands. And once I did that for the franchise, I was like, well, let me take advantage of some of those too. Not all of them. So, I opened one up in Lower Westchester County, Port Chester, New York. That was as a result of of that relationship I developed. The one down in Florida as well, in the Seminole, Florida, is also one of those relationships. But I have other relationships that I've developed, with community centers and so forth. So I just, as the opportunity, I find areas I want to grow. I look for pools, and as I land the pool, I start one up myself. I think I'm nuts, but
did you have is there maybe a big aha moment you had when you opened a location outside of New York and you opened that first Florida location? Was it, wow, it doesn't really matter where you are in the country, people have the same needs, or did you learn something different about systems or the demographic?
Well, what's interesting about Florida is, everybody has a backyard pool. So there are differences in regions, and so in New York, obviously, you have to educate people that they need to take lessons year round in order to be ready for the big swim season. Whereas in other areas, the swim season is, 8 months out of the year. It's a different educational process, I think, but it is pretty much the same. Everybody needs to know how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you could survive a falling in the water doesn't mean you know how to swim. And so that's some of the some of the education that we have to do. But our first franchise location was in Florida, and we opened our corporate location after that one. So
Okay.
they were actually very successful there before we opened up. That just happens to be in an area that we have a lot of family, and so we figured we'd be down there enough
Mm-hmm.
where we could help operate it. I also have a manager in place there, but we would help operate it when we come down, pretty much every 3 or 4 weeks.
What was life like when you first became a franchisor? Like, so how did you find this Florida franchise, and you're going to be opening Connecticut and I should say Connecticut and Maryland? How did you find your first few?
Well, we work mostly with brokers. I'd say a lot of that has been through brokers and then friend of a friend of a friend kind of stuff. People start talking about it a little bit. They follow it, maybe commented on social media, and they were like, oh, and somebody just kind of stumbles upon it. We find that even though our first franchise, his accountant, for instance, is all interested in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a one-off. But we do a lot of work with the brokers. We're going to start a big initiative this year to do more organic advertising. We've identified some regions of the country that have a lot of inventory of pools that we have available to us
Mm-hmm.
through our relationships. And so we'll focus in those areas to help promote that even more.
And what are the aspirations for 2024? What are the number of new franchises you'd like to sign up?
Well, we finished the year 2023 with two signed, one in late November, the other one in middle of December. So I think we're, as far as a franchise goes, having 6 territories sold in roughly the first year and a half or so is we're way ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
For an emerging. So, but I like to see that grow, probably at least double or triple for this year as we put more focus in some of our relationships with the brokers and a lot of the organic growth. We have a new website being developed, our FranDev website, very focused on SEO, and we'll follow that up with a big social media campaign, especially in the areas that we feel will be high growth. We've got some really, really good relationships with some of the brokerage, Franchise Broker Association, FranServe, IFPG,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the brokers in there that have really embraced our brand. They see this as a great opportunity for somebody looking to especially exit the corporate world. It's a low investment opportunity, and unlike a lot of businesses that take 2, 3, 5 years to become profitable, this is one because of the low operating costs. Where you can become profitable very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually appeals to a lot of folks on the the non-investors kind of people, the mom and pops that really want to be owner operators of their own business. That doesn't mean the investors can't get into this, and the area development type operations, but we kind of appeal on both sides because of.
Who is your ideal franchise owner? Is it somebody that's hands-on? Is it owner operator, or is it more investor and manage operated?
Ideal, I believe, because of the mission that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Swim lessons save lives,
Mm-hmm.
and if you find a owner operator that really buys into that mission, that is best. That's not the only way to go. We do have a lot of conversations with folks that want to roll this out, do area development kind of stuff, put managers in place at the locations. Absolutely will work.
Mm-hmm.
But owner operators are clearly have more skin in the game.
Yeah,
honestly.
sure.
And once they get on the same mission that we're on, I mean, our newest franchise that signed in Gaithersburg, Maryland. This is a husband and wife, newlyweds. She had a near fatal drowning herself as a kid. So this actually really her ability to identify with this mission really has driven them towards us.
That's remarkable. And I would imagine there's going to be a lot more people out there that are going to come to you because it is very mission based and they may have had an experience, and it might not even been a negative. It could have been a very positive experience that they had, right? As a kid in swim, and wants to further that mission and make it part of their life and part of their career. I'm curious to hear what are some of the traits though that you think a franchisee needs to have to be successful.
Customer service oriented, at times you're going to have to bite your tongue, but that's in any business you have to do that. Is customer always right? Yeah, most of the time you can accommodate that.
Right.
But being very responsive, having empathy, understanding that this is your business, even though you're a franchise and you're paying a royalty. That royalty is, well, for us, it's 8%. That means you're the 92% owner of this business,
Sure.
right? I mean, it's really on your hands to make sure that you're successful. And so we give you a lot of help, a lot of guidance, a lot of hands-on experience that we have. In fact, we even have, we call a franchise freestyle, little play on words. It's a monthly call amongst all of our owners, where we collaborate. Hey, what worked here that's not working here? What have you tried? But we do a lot of hand holding until you become proficient, but then leverage you to help others as well to grow through your expertise. And so it's don't try to be the one that fixes the whole model. Where the model works. Trust the process. We're really not looking for you to develop the process. There are opportunities to do things a little bit differently. In the marketing, maybe you try this instead of that. That's fine, because your region better than we know your region. So if your region, you've got this type of community, and this is the messaging that works in that community, then do it. But it's within the whole paradigm of the system. We're not looking for inventors of a new system.
Jeff, what's a typical day in the life look like of a franchise owner? And again, we're assuming, of course, they're not the instructor, but is this full time, or can they do this part time? And what does the day look like for them?
If you're looking at a single unit, you're operating a single unit. It is a little cyclical because we have 6 seasons, 6 sessions during the year. And so you'll spend a lot of time up before the session starts trying to increase your enrollments, get your current swimmers enrolled and so forth. And then the next, once the session starts for the next couple of weeks, making sure everybody's situated properly, the wallflower that comes in that has to be called on, they might just stand there. We've had the instances of this where they're just standing there waiting to be called, making sure they know where to go and so forth. And then it can kind of scale off, as it's just running. The swim instructor pretty much has it covered. You can go in there and schmooze. Early on in the first year or two, you probably want to do more schmoozing than later on when you're more at capacity. Because when I talk to Frank has a friend. Well, talk to Frank about their friend. Do you have any friends coming? Right. Frank, how are you? Are you a good swimmer? I know you have your kids in here, and you want to watch your children when they're in the water, but if something happens, are you capable of jumping in? No? Well, try the adult lessons, learn, at least become proficient. Are there vendor days going on at your schools? I'd like to participate in it. Can you hook me up? Oh, you're on the PTA? Great. Can we do a mailer to the schools? So it's if you kind of mind the opportunity a little bit, it'll help build the program faster. It'll organically grow because at the core, it's a great program. And so people will talk to others when people post in the moms groups. Hey, I want to get my child's swim lessons. Where are you going? Oh my God, I went here and here, but this place is great. That kind of thing. So you'll get those recommendations. In fact, one of the 4 pillars of our marketing program, one of them is all referral based, referral marketing. And some of that is organic and some of that is, hey, telling your customers, hey, if you got friends that want to come, I'll give you a $20 off on next session, and there's no limit. If you bring 5 friends, it's $100 off next session, and so, but that's the referral part of our program. So we actually have a fairly well structured marketing program that has digital as one of the components, but there's a lot more than that.
What about the greatest opportunity you see as the next age range that you guys haven't fully capitalized on?
When for years and years and years, we operated in the 6 month to 12 years, I'd say was probably the 80% of our business. But one of the things that we saw grow, well, there were two things that we saw grow post-pandemic. I can only attribute that to people realizing everything was shut down. And the only thing that you could do was swim, so you go to your backyard, your friend's backyard, go out to the lake, you could swim. And what people realized was, A, my kids couldn't swim, and B, I couldn't watch them. So what was happening was the growth of our adult program has been tremendous.
Wow.
And I've seen that in all of our locations. So it's not just a health thing, I want to be able to do laps. It was, hey, I'm afraid of standing and waste water. Can you help me learn how to swim? And so I've seen, I used to, at my busiest location, I used to have maybe 3 adult classes just based on demand. Now I have like 8 or 10 classes going on, and plus private lessons going on for my adult program. The Lutz location where you're located, they have a tremendous adult program, both in group and private lessons. Tremendous. So I'm seeing that more than anything. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of growth in is special needs. I mentioned that earlier. Special needs, there's, I'd say, 2 activities that really appeal to special needs students. One is swimming, one is horseback riding. And it's just the relationship they have with the water and other animals. So I've seen, I'd say the special needs privates that we teach are probably triple what we used to do. All right. It's not a large percentage of our program, but I see it growing. And so those are 2 big opportunities. And then the other thing that, I always like to focus on for a few reasons is the infant program. So there's, the 6 month to 2 years, mostly, is they need to learn how to survive. All right. And so you've seen programs around where the kid gets thrown into the water, they float on their back and they start screaming. We're a different kind of program than that. But
both of my kids were in a program like that when they were little.
Yeah. So that's the ISR. We're more of a softer introduction to the water. No knock to the ISR at all. Very, very successful program. Our program is different than that, but we also teach the survival skills, teach them how to float, but do it in a more enjoyable way. But so the survival side of it, but it's important. In fact, what you're seeing now is states like, in fact, New York just did this, is they're beginning to require pediatricians communicate to their customers, their families about swim lessons, from a infant age on. I don't know what other states are doing that, but I do know other states are, like Florida, for instance. There's some legislation that has not yet passed, but it was introduced last year for grants for swim lessons. And there's also private organizations. Rowdy Gaines does this. He's an ex-Olympian. There's a grocery store, small chain in this area called Stu Leonard's, where the guy that owns it, his son drowned. And now they're offering grants for swim lessons as well. So swim lessons is different than other activities that you bring your kids to. It's not the same as soccer, or dance, or gymnastics. Those are great sports. My kids all went through all of that, and those are all very important, but it's not the same category. This category is a life skill. It's a survival skill. And once you're able to survive, then it becomes more of that sport thing where you can learn how to do your different strokes, and you got a lot of kids that will want to achieve swim team kind of goals. But the survival side of it, it's a mandatory skill. Everybody has to learn it. It's the leading cause of accidental death in children 4 and under. It's the second leading cause of accidental death in ages 12 and under. It's something that is preventable. There's studies that show that children that have taken swim lessons are 88% less likely to drown, to die by drowning. So the stats are there. There is a need. This has an impact on it. It's something we have to promote. And that's the mission that we're on and why I'm trying to promote this throughout the United States. We need to save lives.
That's great, Jeff. And a mission-led franchise is just, you run it different, right? And when you lead a company where it's life or death for people and it's mission-led, it's just completely different than just an entertainment, or a, home services kind of brand. And no knock to any of those companies at all, but it just hits different. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. In fact, our owners, we talk about them communicating with the customers, standing on deck, and schmoozing with them. But what you'll learn is some of the stories. Not everybody, but a lot of people have these stories of their own drownings or near drownings, and so forth, and the phobias. And a lot of these are cry fests sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
what business can you own and operate where at the end of the day, the fulfillment that you get as a result of the impact that you've done for people is immense, and so we'll have adults where, they start out where you have to hold them by the hand, walking around in waist deep water just to prove to them that all they have to do is stand up and they're safe, to a point where now they're doing laps. I mean, these are, or that first time that they stuck their face in the water or floated on their back, they're crying, they're hugging you, they're hugging the instructors. They're so grateful, and families are really, really grateful. You've got parents of special needs students that look, there's different degrees of need, some that will actually learn how to swim, some that just want to float. That feeling of being in the water is just so comforting to them, and talking to their parents, they're so appreciative of what you do. And it's life-changing, and it's something that, propagates. You just get more and more into it.
That's awesome. Jeff, what's your vision for the company?
Big picture, I'd like to see hundreds of stores. I'd like to see the growth, everybody carrying this mission. I'd like to see us actually have a measurable impact on those statistics. But I want to find owners that I want to do business with, people that, I want to be partnered with, and that really, really are mission driven the way I am. But I want to see Hudson Valley swim throughout the United States. We're only in a handful. We're in 4 states right now. We'll be in our 5th state. But there's a lot of footprint left in some high demand areas, and I want to make sure that we're in them this year, and I just want to be throughout the United States in the next few years.
Sure. Well, slow and steady definitely wins the race. We have seen many brands where they try to open as many as humanly possible in the first couple of years, but if you can't sustain it, you can't support them, they're not going to last. And it sounds like, you're growing at a pace that not only you're comfortable with, but it also sounds like you have to be really, really selective on who you bring on. You said it earlier about bringing on somebody who, obviously you can see is a good fit for your brand. And I would imagine too, that's got to be a challenge when you're working with the broker groups. Now, you mentioned earlier about having a good relationship with the brokers, and I'm curious to know, what do you think it takes to be successful in working with broker groups? Because it's more than just say, hey, here's my company, here's what we do, here's the investment range.
Well, it's really it's not necessarily just the group itself, but it's the brokers themselves, and so there are in each of those groups a handful of brokers that we work with time and time again, obviously not necessarily always successfully, but they learn more about our business. The more they learn about our business and the type of people that we think are going to be successful. See, I want you to be successful. I want our owners to be super successful. All right. And I'm really, really driven to make sure they're successful. That's why I meet with them as much as I do. And it's not just me, it's the whole team. But I don't want to sell you a territory if I don't think, A, that's a good territory.
Right.
And B, that you can successfully operate it. If you're looking for a 9 to 5 job, or if you're looking, you're a business owner. What business owner kind of works 9 to 5, unless you're emptying vending machines? This is a business, and the more you put in, the more you get out. The ones that are just already talking to me about their exit strategy, yeah, you might want an exit strategy, but maybe
Sure.
operate for a couple of days before you do that, before you start planning it.
Right. Right. How big is a territory?
Our territories are not necessarily based on radius. It's based on the number of children 14 and under. So we look for a
Okay.
territory size of 40,000 children ages 14 and under. That we feel will provide you ample opportunity. Plus, if you do have competition, it certainly could support it. If you look at competition, let's say they're a large school and they have 500 students. If you have three schools, within a 5 mile radius of you, and that 40,000 usually is around 3 to 5 mile radius. If you have three schools that are supporting 500 students, well, there's still plenty of addressable market left. And so, I think one of the things that is good, it's kind of like the concept of having a gas station on every corner. You kind of know to go to that corner for the gas station, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people know about swimming and they know about swim lessons, and they're either happy with the organization they're with or they're not. And if they're not happy, they're looking for others, and then we're an option. And if nothing else, we do a great job of marketing.
Right.
And so, for most people that have no idea where to go for swim lessons, we become one of the primary options when they start looking around.
Sure. And, I'm thinking about how similar, of course, your business is to the kids sports league business. And that is your franchisee. He or she is only as good as their instructors, right? In other words, the instructors are the front line. The customer experience is completely driven by the instructor, by the instruction they're getting, and whether they like the instructor, whether they're learning something. How does the franchisee find instructors, and how do they screen them and recruit and train?
So we help identify your lead instructor,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll help interview them. Obviously, you don't know how to interview, that type of a skill.
Sure.
So we'll co-interview so that you can learn. We do have the questions to ask in our ops manual. But nothing beats the ability to, be part of it and really listen in. So we'll help you identify. And once you've identified who that lead instructor is going to be, and we're looking for somebody that minimum has 5 years of hands-on experience. But really, I'm looking for an aquatics professional, somebody that may have 10, 15, 20 years. This is what they do. And that's the kind of person we're looking for. We're not looking for a minimum wage. That's another thing. A lot of the swim schools are focused, I would say, on the beginner levels. And because they're focused on the beginner levels, they think they can hire, somebody that has no experience. Maybe they were a good swimmer in high school, and train them. And so, they've got a year, now they have a year of experience. Well, our folks have been teaching for years, and there's just such a significant difference between, a rookie and an experienced instructor. So when you go back to, that experience that a customer is getting in the water, it's a result of experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that experience isn't just being able to teach a lesson, but it's teaching infants, singing to the babies, as well as interacting with an adult. You're not going to get that out of a high school student. Once we've identified that person and interviewed them, then they send them to one of our New York locations, where we will co-teach with them and work with them to teach our program. It's one that I mentioned earlier that we've developed ourselves. So they need to learn our verbiage. They need to learn, the techniques that we use, and some of the games that we introduce. Our games are all skill based, and so while the kids having fun, they're actually learning something. So
Right.
we kill two birds. We hate birds.
What about the challenge? I would imagine, okay, I'm a potential franchisee and I hear this sounds great that I'm not going to have a rookie instructor, but how big is the, no pun intended, the pool, so to speak, of finding an experienced aquatics instructor that's been around 10, 15 years?
They're there. It's a matter of finding them. So we
Yeah.
actually have two strategies to identify them.
Okay.
We have a passive, which is the classic, post an ad and wait for it to come. Build it and they will come. That's passive advertising. We have a more active technique, active advertising that we do in order to recruit and identify them. And the other aspect of it is we're not trying to get one over on the employee. All right. We pay them what they're worth. It's funny. Sometimes I'll get these guys, they've been working for 10 years and we get them in the water and they're all stars and they're getting paid like just over minimum wage. I'm like, I don't believe in that. I want these folks to be loyal.
Sure.
I want them to enjoy. I don't want them spending every waking hour looking for gas money and food money and looking for another job that's maybe even outside of the aquatics industry just so they can survive.
Yeah.
Pay them what they're worth. There's enough. I mean, our tuitions are high enough where you could sacrifice a few points on your profit margin just so that you can feed your instructors.
Yeah. And how many instructors do I typically need when I start out?
Just one, because you're not going to start off with a fully built out program. So you might start off because obviously you're starting from scratch. So you might start out teaching during some of the sweet spots, the after school, the 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.s and weekends, at least on Saturday, growing to Sunday. But it's not until it's actually fairly soon when you'll find certain days are beginning to fill up. And at that point there, you begin to recruit for that next person because you're going to look to start doubling up. And typically that's going to happen on a Saturday or a Sunday. If you didn't start Sunday, your Saturday classes are filling, you have a choice. Expand to Sunday,
right,
or add a second instructor on a Saturday. And then you look to, all right, you might have to have them team teach during the week, so you before you have the need, you see the trend, we teach you, okay, now's the time to start looking for that second. Now you also have an instructor that's been in the industry. Guess what they have? They got contacts. I used to work with Frank. Frank was an all-star. Let's contact Frank. This place is great. They pay you. So now you're in the industry, you start to leverage some of those contacts.
What advice would you give to people who are considering joining your franchise brand as a franchise owner?
My advice first would be talk to us. Don't just read and listen to the the YouTube videos and things like that. Everybody's got them and they highlight the best of everything.
Right.
We're going to be really open with you right from the onset. We're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing us, by the way. We're looking for, dynamic kind of people that can actually do this job. But we're going to run you through the whole thing. All right. And you'll never do better than talking to us, just reading the literature, talking to your broker, you're going to lose a little bit in the translation for sure.
Sure.
It's worth the 30 to 60 minutes to just talk to us. To really learn about it and ask questions and so forth. You'll find it's very eye-opening once you have that opportunity to do that. So I would say schedule some time.
And Jeff, if someone's interested in getting more information about the franchise opportunity, where can they go?
Well, you can go to our website, which is franchise.hvswim.com. We actually have a bunch of URLs that'll get you to the same spot, but that one there. We're redesigning. I will warn you, we are redesigning the website. It'll be really, really snappy once it's done, but that's still another month or two out. But so there's a ton of information there, and you can contact us 888-4HV-SWIM. Once again, schedule some time. There's no obligation whatsoever, no pressure kind of a situation. I know we're not salespeople by trade. We're just going to tell you the way it is and see if it's a good match.
Nice. Well, Jeff, I appreciate having you on the show here today. I always finish with the tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with just sharing information. So if I was an entrepreneur looking to franchise my company, what would be a piece of advice you'd give to me?
Well, as I said earlier, make sure that you're able to duplicate your model. And if you don't have a model, that's a problem. But I think, be able to duplicate, spend a lot of the early time, I'd say, pulling your pants up, making sure that you look at all the pain points in starting the business up. If it's hard to find insurance in your business, and it was hard to find the right insurance for ours, spend the time to identify, a broker that is capable of really giving you good guidance and coming up with a plan that's going to be comprehensive, so that the franchise can just put you in contact, put the franchisor in contact with that broker, so that one's nailed. Make sure you've got all the aspects of your business nailed so that you're able to quickly get somebody up and running. By us doing what we did, over the course of the last year and a half, we looked at all those aspects and we said, all right, how can I get somebody in business quickly? Let's identify all these things and have all the vendors all set to go so that we can get you up and going in 2.5 to 3 months.
Jeff, this is great stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you all the continued success and hope to see you again soon.
I look forward to it, Frank. Appreciate having me.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.